You're listening to Kate Palmer from sparkletart.com.
Today is a homage to Prima. I've been looking at a whole lot of tags on Pinterest lately. I hadn't really given much thought to making something as simple as a tag into something that was as exciting to create as a card front or a journal page. Pinterest has changed my mind. I've seen so many gorgeous tags and so many ways for using them that I've kind of gone on a bit of a tag frenzy. So this is the first one I'm showing you today. Today I'm using a whole lot of my Prima stash. So I'm going to make a tag today that's black, white and pink with a few hints of green. So I have this gorgeous packet of Prima trim, and it's got this beautiful black lace, which is what I'm going to be using. I have a packet of slightly older Prima flowers, a Chilean raspberry, and another packet. These are the fairy tale roses. And then I've got, of course, these beautiful fabric flowers. And that's these, Louisa May Alcott's in bubblegum. I have some of these wonderful wooden pieces. Now, the wooden buttons. And lastly, I have some paper from Kaisercraft, or Kaisercraft, depending on how you'd like to say it. Now this is actually the same piece of paper, but it's double-sided. So on one side you've got this beautiful damask pattern, and on the other, these wonderful words. And of course I have one of these shipping tags. Now I've taken out a selection of flowers that I think I might use. And the first thing I'm going to do is do a little bit of decorating on the tag. So I'm going to put this damask pattern down the bottom here. But of course I don't really want it. Let's find a nice piece, something with a pink perhaps. And I don't really want it to have that straight edge. I mean, I know I'm going to put the lace on there, so maybe just leave it like that perhaps, with a little bit of lace over the top. Okay, yeah, I could go for that. I'm just going to put it about a third of the way down here. Now the next step is to have this across the top here, but it's not going to fit the whole way. So what I'm going to do is just trim it. And stick 2 layers. I'm going to use some of the glue and seal from Inkzentials. And after sticking down the top, I'm just going to apply this to the bottom. Now this stuff dries pretty quickly, so sometimes you find that you have to reapply so it sticks properly. Now all I have to do is flip this over and just cut the sides off so that it's the right shape. Now I have covered over the little circle here, but I'll go and fix that later. And there we have the first layer. Now previously I would have probably kept a scrap this size, but what I have discovered in cleaning up my room is that I've kept boxes and boxes and boxes of scraps that size that I just don't use. So it's kind of turned out to be false economy. I had folders to store them in, I had boxes that I had them sorted into, and I never go back and use them. So something this size now, which is about not quite long enough to be made into an ATC, not quite wide enough, now goes in the bin. I'm finding that this is helping keep my room so much tidier, and I'm so much happier. I can find things, put things away, and it's so much quicker and easier to actually do anything. Now this is where I add some of the green. I'm going to use peeled paint and Shabby Shutters Distress Inks. I also have a stamp from Diane Reveley. First I'm going to apply a little of the Shabby Shutters. So I just have one of the Distress ink applicators and pounce it on my craft mat. and just add a little of this around the edges. Now I'm also going to add some down the bottom here. I do have pink on this side, and I'm going to leave that there. I'm just adding a touch of this green as well. Now I'd like that to be a little bit darker, so I'm just going to add a bit more. Okay, that's it for the shabby shutters. Now for the peeled paint. Woo! Now I've actually cut some of these little mats in half, just so they go a little bit further. Nothing's cheap these days. And I'm just going to apply this around the edges, just to darken that edge. So you can see that whilst the shabby shutters is nice and bright here, the peeled paint just adds a darker edge to that. I like putting the darker colour around the edge, just sort of acts as a bit of a border. Now while I'm at it, I'm just going to ink the very edge of this. I'm not a fan of the naked edge, purely because it really stands out when you've coloured the rest of the tag, and I just find it looks a little strange, just to me. Personal opinion there. Now there's a little bit of, you can't really see it here, but there's a little bit of ink left on my craft mat. Waste not, want not. I'm just going to colour the back of the tag here. You can see that's adding just a little bit of colour. Now I don't spend a lot of time on the back of the tags, but it is nice if it sort of somehow coordinates with the front. And even if that is just mopping up the excess ink with the back of your tag so that it's got a slight green tinge, so be it. I'm going to ink the stamp with the peeled paint, and then stamp this a couple of times. Just sort of breaks up the background a little. And that's about it. I'm going to use a little Making Memories ribbon glue. I find the stuff is fantastic. I love the fact that it doesn't soak through. It's almost like a putty. Now it does dry clear, so I won't have to worry too much. You just have to get it in the right spot. So that's where that's going to go. Now I'd like this central flower to be raised from the backing a little. It just gets a bit lost by itself. So I'm going to use some of this foam tape to raise the flower. So I'm just cutting a little square, which I'm going to add to the back here. Now I'm just going to do this twice, so it really sits up proud. Now this is just the Express It double-sided tape. Whoops. It's nice and thick and sticky. Now I have a little bit of green leafy ribbon here. I'm just going to cut some of this and tuck it down the side here. That's another reason to leave a bit of space there, because then I can just tuck this ribbon however I like. I'm going to glue this down with a little bit of Glossy Accents. Whoops, finger in front there. And I'll probably just put a little bit on the back of this flower too, just to make sure it doesn't shift at all. Now, I won't chop that off just yet, because I don't know quite how I'd like it to sit with the other flowers. So So I'm just leaving myself a few options. So I have a bit of wonderful green twine in honeydew. I'm just going to thread this through the button. Put that down the bottom here. Using a bit more of the glossy accents, I'm just going to add the little button. Now, because it's the same colours as the rest, it's not standing out a lot, but that's okay. I actually quite like that it's not, because then if I choose to put a word down here, it might stand out a little bit more. Now I just have to figure out the placement of my flowers. So I have two of these larger ones and a couple of smaller ones. Now I don't want to overdo it, so I'm just going to turn this around and have a play with the placement for a second. So this is the placement I've decided on, and I just have to stick it down. Now I'm going to make this flower slightly different from the others. And that's for two reasons. So first, every now and then you get a prima flower that's not quite like the others, and that would be this little one. Now that's only because its glue has set so that the flower doesn't really have a center. But that's going to work in my favour in this instance. So I'm just squashing this down just slightly. But so far this is what it looks like, and it's just looking like a garden to me, really. Just gorgeous. I love the colours, I love the prima flowers. Now if you have a brad you like but it's not sitting the way you want, I found that my trusty Tim Holtz scissors cut through metal. Just be really careful because the little pieces can fling off. And then you need to make sure that any little pieces of metal are poked back down, if you can, of course. Apply a nice healthy dose of glossy accents. And then place the top of the brad on there. Now the beauty of this is it doesn't actually need to be flat. So just keep playing with it until it's sitting in about the right spot. Then for me, I'm going to add a tiny bit more of the glossy accents, just so I know it's not going to go anywhere. And then a tiny little bit of glitter. So I'm going to use these Stickles, and I love Stardust, it's my favourite. And it kind of matches what's on these flowers already. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit around where I've added that brad, and then a few little bits on the petals, just so it doesn't look out of place. Now I've just added a couple of little pearls in the top corner here and one down in the bottom corner right there, and I'm going to finish this off with one of these word accessories from Collections. Now these are just basically printed cardboard, so you could do something like this at home if you don't have this set from Collections. But I really love these because they're printed on nice thick cardstock. They're beautiful and black. Makes them really easy to use.
So I've cut the word out, inked the edges with Distress ink and covered it in glossy accents, and then adhered it to my little tag.
And then leave this to dry.
And this is my finished prima tag. You can see that by slightly altering that last flower, it matches the others, but it retains a little bit of individuality. Just adding that one different touch to one flower really makes this whole thing look a bit more unique and a bit more together. Sort of makes everything match a little bit better. I love how this tag turned out. The colours, just everything seemed to come together. It was completely gorgeous. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to part with it. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and I'll come back and show you a few more tag ideas later.
Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.